Insemmilkom jiena Nicole Meilak, id-deputat editur online għal MaltaToday, u llum se nitkellmu ma' Edith Devaney, id-direttur artistiku ta' MICAS. Wara aktar minn 20 sena bħala kuratur fir-Royal Academy of Arts f'Londra, u mbagħad sentejn tmexxi il-David Hockney Foundation, Devaney se tkun qed tmexxi l-viżjoni artistiku ta' dan il-mużew. Edith, thank you for sitting down with us today. I just want to jump right in and talk about what brought you here in the first place, because you spent many years working at the Royal Academy of Arts in London, and you also have a very long-standing relationship with David Hockney. Mm-hmm. What was it about this project that made you want to come on board?
Well, I was introduced to the chair and CEO, a very good friend of Phyllis Muscat, is Lord Marland, Jonathan Marland. And I was introduced to him in London in 2017, I think, and he said, "You must meet my friend Phyllis. She's doing this extraordinary thing in Malta." And I did meet Phyllis quite soon after that. And of course, she had just started managing this whole project. And I became very interested. I mean, the idea of a kind of startup museum, a startup not-for-profit, is so unusual in the art world that I was fascinated by it. And I became involved in a very small way, coming over to do talks and get involved in things, and it built. And during my time at the Academy and then with David Hockney, I continued to keep a sort of a watch on what they were doing and continue to be in contact with the team here. And eventually the idea of becoming fully involved was just, I couldn't resist it anymore. And I thought, what an opportunity for anyone. And that's why I'm here now.
And what is your vision for not just MICAS, but also the Maltese contemporary art scene?
So I think it's, I think that the vision for MICAS and the vision for the contemporary art scene are one and the same. So I don't see them as two separate things. And I think that the vision that we have for MICAS is a very ambitious one and a truly international one. That was the remit that we were given, and that's what we're working towards. So we want this museum and what we show here to be on the international art stage, and for us to enter into a dialogue with all of the other institutions that are part of that ecosystem. And the fact that we're here in Malta has to be reflected in the program. It would, you know, it's kind of obvious that, you know, the history of Malta, the place we are, the fact that we, you know, in this very building, it's old meets new. The cultural scene is so lively here as well that, of course, we're completely engaged with that. But I think that the summation of it is to bring all of that onto the world stage and to bring artists from outside Malta here to engage with it, and to bring Maltese artists who are operating at a particular standard of excellence to MICAS, so that then they have got this window onto the rest of the global art scene.
Yeah, so in a way, could you maybe elaborate a bit further on how MICAS is going to really push for this internationalization and bring even Maltese artists to the international contemporary art scene?
So the only way that we can really get the attention of the international art world is to put on exhibitions of excellence. It's the only way to do it. There's no other fast track way. So our program, which we've put in place a program for quite some time. You know, before we opened, we announced the program for the first 2 years, and we're working on, you know, the next 2 years as well. It has to have consistent excellence, and not only that. I think that to really make a noise, you know, we're slightly, you know, geographically distant from what may be considered the center of art. I mean, I don't really buy that anymore, that Paris or London or New York is the center of art. I think it's much more spread across the rest of the world. But for us to find our place there, for us to have a voice there, we have to have those consistent exhibitions. And it would be an expectation that within the exhibitions that we present, that we are celebrating where we are. And in that, we're presenting Maltese artists who are, you know, have got that kind of international focus in their work.
And even to talk a bit about sort of the nature of this museum as well, and you sort of touched on it in the sense that there's no fixed collection right now at the museum. It's not a collecting museum, and there will be rotating exhibitions happening over the years. How do you think people will receive this, so to speak? This is, so to speak, almost a newer concept in Malta, in the sense that many Maltese people don't come here, don't go to a museum and expect a fixed collection. This would be very different. How do you think this will be received?
I think it'll be well received because it's ever changing. And I think the thing about a permanent collection and only a permanent collection is that once you've seen it, you've seen it. And what we want to do is have a much more vibrant engagement and continuous engagement with what's happening in contemporary art. There's always that problem with contemporary art as well, that, you know, you can establish a contemporary art museum. You think of something like MoMA, you know, that was established by Alfred Barr in the 1940s, 30s in New York. At what stage does the contemporary art that he bought then not be contemporary art anymore? You know, at some stage it kind of, you think, well, actually that's now becoming, you know, modernist art. So it gets set in aspic in a way. I think what we want to do here is keep that kind of sense of vibrancy and change. By not having a collection gives you enormous freedom because you can respond to all of the different kind of trends and impulses and that happen across the art world. I mean, contemporary art is so rooted to social change. And you can identify, you know, when something happens in the world, the art changes because artists respond to it in a very particular way. So I think that's what will keep us very current and very relevant. And not having a collection is actually, that there are advantages there. But I think one of the things that we wanted to stress about how we identify ourselves is that we see ourselves as a museum and not a Kunsthalle. This is not a place that just provides a venue for showing exhibitions. We have a program. We have a kind of real sense of purpose within the program. We're taking all of our audience on a journey. I mean, we're introducing an element of contemporary art to Malta, but we're also have that sense of responsibility for educating, informing, delighting the audiences here by our program. And I think, you know, we're able to be very fleet of foot in what we put on and to take all of those opportunities, but to manage it ourselves so that the program is very much embedded in who we are. So I think that we have the principles of a museum, the sense of a direction of a museum, but not a collection. And it's not unusual. There's more projects like ours sort of springing up around the world, and one thinks of the new museum in New York, which operates without a program and they're without a collection, and they're able to do a very kind of diverse program of works because they don't have to refer to a collection. And the Serpentine in London operates in the same way. So I think it's quite a fresh model, but I think we feel it's a very appropriate one for us and for Malta.
Just to comment maybe on the architecture of the space as well. This is we're here now and there's no exhibitions, but that almost gives you more of a sense of just how big this venue is.
Yeah.
How do you think the space sort of helps with this vision for MICAS in a sense?
It's a very good question. So we're in between exhibitions. So this is the moment that the Joanna Vasconcelos, which was our inaugural exhibition, has come down. And the next exhibition that comes in is our wonderful Maltese exhibition, which is the space we inhabit, which it features the work of 6 artists. And these are really unusual galleries where we have these massive walls for the fortification, and then this modern structure that's been positioned within these foundation walls. So we're very much governed by the archway at the end and these beautiful walls either side. It's such an interesting question as to how this will shape our program. Inevitably it does. Space always does kind of dictate what you can do and what you want to do. And I've always been used to working in quite formal galleries. And when I first got my head around what these galleries were, I have to admit, I had that moment of slight panic, thinking, I've never worked in a space that's not a white cube. How do you do this? But, you know, in a way, what has been great for me is to be kind of infused by the artists that have come to visit it. So we've had so many artists, international artists, local artists, coming to this space and just being delighted by it and seeing how the space has actually inspired them and inspired them to think about how to make new work to fill it, how to gather some of their collection to show here, to, you know, so all of those things have kind of informed how I feel about it. And we're still getting to know this space. This is so brand new to us. We're still getting to know it, but it has made me think differently as a curator. And I think it's actually challenged me, which I really welcome.
And in fact, there have been artists that have come to Malta recently and have visited this museum. And I think recently we had Sir Anthony Gormley visiting MICAS, and he heaped a lot of praise on the concept as well. I think the exhibition, and even Joanna Vasconcelos was the sort of inaugural artist, so to speak, for the space. And MICAS has only been open for a couple of months now. But in that short amount of time, what do you think has been the impact so far of MICAS?
I think that the impact on the people
maybe on
here,
the internationalization
on the
aspect,
well, I think we can look at both. So I think internationally, it's made a noise. I think that the press and publicity that we've got, that we've worked very hard to get, has been extraordinary and has reached across the world. We are now being contacted by institutions all over to find out what we're doing next. And that's a position that that's exactly where we wanted to be. And we know that we have to work really hard to maintain that. Because we want to be this contemporary art beacon in this region. And, you know, I mean this region in quite a large geographical sense. And I felt this so strongly from the beginning that when we're putting on exhibitions here, the program should be as strong as a program I would deliver in London, in Paris, in New York. It should be as good as that. And we're determined it's going to be. And I think that the international press have picked up on it. Trying to get Maltese visitors to come in has been a complete delight, you know, and having our open days, which we did twice during the run of the Joanna Vasconcelos, was just amazing. We had thousands of people come in, and it's just so lovely to see families coming in, grandmothers, kids running around, and really enjoy the experience. And we hope that they continue to come back and see it as a destination venue. And the geography of the place and the grounds that we have and the sculpture parks and the vaults and everything else really lend itself to doing that. And that's very much in our minds as well. The exhibitions will drive attendance, but the venue will make people come back again and again.
And just to talk a bit more about the next exhibition that will be happening, the Space We Inhabit.
Yes.
This is going to be a Maltese group exhibition, and it's going to be the first to be shown here. How could you maybe explain a bit more how the artists were selected for this exhibition and what the story behind this will be? Sure.
So I have, it's been a great honor and a privilege to get to know local artists here. And also to kind of, you know, I've always worked with artists. So when I was at the Royal Academy, we had Royal Academicians who were elected to be part of the Royal Academy. So since I was in my 20s, I have worked around artists. And some of them are very, very well known and celebrated. You mentioned Sir Anthony Gormley, who's one of them. And others are brilliant artists, but have never quite got that level of recognition. And I think what I was looking for is Maltese artists who were just at the top of their game and who were creating work of such interest and significance that the majority of them already had international recognition. But to bring work by artists who work in really different ways and bring it around a common theme introduces that idea of a group exhibition in the true sense. And I think that's really important for any artistic venue, and certainly for a museum, to be able to set up those dialogues. And it is all about dialogues, and it's about connecting. So what we're doing is all of those 6 artists will be their works will be in dialogue with each other, which I understand is not usual in Maltese galleries. And that it will also, on our international platform, we hope will be in dialogue with the art which is happening across the world. And that's very much our focus. So that it's that whole idea about we're working in 2 directions. So we're bringing artists from outside in, not just to bring their work in and show it here, but for them to really commune with Malta and its culture, like Anthony Gormley coming for a week, or Joanna Vasconcelos spending a long time here, Conrad Shawcross the same, but also for artists who live and work here to have this window onto the larger, wider artistic community.
Yes, and later in the year, there's also the Milton Avery exhibition as well. Could you tell me a bit more about that exhibition, the significance of it as well? Because this is quite a rare exhibition, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. It's a really big thing, and it would be a very big exhibition anywhere. Going back to my previous point about, this would be all of these exhibitions would be exhibitions you would do in any capital city anywhere in the world. So Milton Avery, a very, very important American modernist colorist, was very famous during his lifetime and celebrated by other artists. And he had some success. So he had quite a lot of success, commercially, and had museum shows during his lifetime. But his influence on other artists was profound. In particular, Mark Rothko, Barnett Newman, Adolf Gottlieb. And I make the argument, because abstract expressionism is my subject, and I make the argument, or I've made it in the past, that had it not been for Milton Avery's influence in those artists, the whole of abstract expressionism would have turned out differently, because he influenced that whole element of color field painting. And one of the things that I noted about him talking to artists about his work was that how profound his influence remains today in contemporary art, which is kind of unusual. So artists like Gary Hume, who is one of the young YBAs, has always cited Avery as a major influence. Nicholas Party, the Swiss artist, has always cited him. So what we've done is we have an extraordinary group of Avery paintings, just over 20, which cover his entire career. And we have invited 7 international artists, European and American, to respond to his work. So they'll all be showing around about 3 paintings each. So we have artists like Jonas Wood, who is a LA-based artist, Nicholas Party, who's Swiss, Harold Ancart, who's Belgium, Gary Hume, I've mentioned already, who's British, March Avery, who is Milton Avery's daughter, who's in her 90s. She's included, Henny Anfam, who's Finnish. It's a really extraordinary group of artists, and I think this is going to be a significant exhibition anywhere, because it is breaking new ground and making a new argument within art history.
And maybe just on a last comment as well before we round up the interview, going back to the space of this museum in a sense. Do you imagine maybe this museum going a bit beyond visual arts as well, and maybe exhibiting sort of art in other forms, perhaps, going beyond the visual arts?
What do you mean, kind of dance or music?
Well, potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it really not in the remit?
It's not in the remit. I mean, it's art. It's contemporary art. But of course, contemporary art is wide.
Yes.
So the idea of kind of digital art and sound-based art and installation and performance art, I mean, all of that's possible, absolutely. And all of those are things we're looking at.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much
for
sitting down with us for this interview. Really
You're very
appreciate
welcome.
it. Grazzi tal-li segwejtu din l-intervista. Tista' segwi din l-intervista kif ukoll intervisti oħra fuq il-website tagħna ta' MaltaToday kif ukoll fuq Facebook u Spotify. Insemmilkom.